We're going to be talking about reflexive verbs in the Spanish language. So we call them los verbos reflexivos. And something that's really great is that we already know a little bit about reflexive verbs. So one of the first things that we learn in Spanish is how to say our name, right? So my name is Melanie, my name is Ava, my name is Jacob, my name is Cole, whatever our name is. So if we were to say my name is Juan, we know that we would say me llamo Juan. Great. What that really is saying in Spanish, though, is I call, right? The llamo is I call. The me means myself, and then Juan. So it's saying I call myself Juan. Then we know how to say, what is your name, right? What is your name? So we would say, ¿Cómo te llamas? And we know that what that really means is how do you call yourself, right? How in the como do you call in the llamas? Te is yourself. Her name is Carolina. We would say llama Carolina, right? She calls, right? She calls herself Carolina. So let's just fill in this verb chart, right, with the verb llamarse. So we would say me llamo is the first one, right? Me llamo. I call myself. And our second one, we would have te llamas, just like we had up here, right? You call llamas te yourself. For she calls herself, just like we did with she calls herself Carolina, we have se llama. Then when we come over here, right? So we're going to have the pronoun be nos, and then our verb, right? We call, llamamos, right? In the vosotros form, we're going to have os, llamáis. And for they call themselves, we would have se llaman, right? They call themselves. Reflexive verbs really do is they're verbs that we do to ourselves. Just like we had llamarse, right? Llamarse means to call oneself. That se means oneself. So if we just had the verb llamar, so if we just pretended that that se wasn't there, right? Llamar would just mean to call. So like to call somebody on the phone, to call somebody else. But llamarse means to call oneself. That's why we have me llamo, right? I call myself. Te llamas, you call yourself. Okay, so reflexive verbs are actions that you're doing to yourself. Here, when we talk about how we conjugate reflexive verbs, so when we use reflexive verbs, we have how many parts to our conjugation? Let's look right here, right? These are conjugations. We have we have two parts to our conjugation. So we have two parts. This first part, right, this me, te, se, nos, os, se, those are called reflexive pronouns. So we have reflexive pronouns. And our second part, right, we have over here, llamo, llamas, llama, our conjugated verb. And even though that we are conjugating right here, we conjugated this in the present tense, right, the present indicative, we can use reflexive verbs in any different type of conjugations. We can use it in the preterite, in the imperfect, in the subjunctive. Reflexive verbs are used in all different types of conjugations for verbs in Spanish. So we have two parts, the reflexive pronoun and the conjugated verb. So reflexive pronouns, look up here, we have me, te, se, nos, os, se. And sometimes I think it's helpful for some people to put it in our 6 square right here. So we could go me, te, se, nos, os, se. That's just a little easier for some of our friends who really need that visual 6 square to help remember which conjugations go in what box, right? This would be the yo form, the tu form, the él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay, so me, te, se, nos, os, se. When we're using reflexive verbs, we can actually replace the subject of the sentence with the proper reflexive pronoun. Reflexive verbs always require using that reflexive pronoun that we talked about up here, but we could also replace the subject, so we don't even need to have that yo, tu, él, ella in there. We can just get rid of it. And your what will conjugate for that subject? Your verb, right? Because verbs are really the only thing in Spanish that conjugate. So You can conjugate your verb, and I already answered this question for you, in any tense. So when we talk about reflexive verbs, we actually use them a lot when we talk about our daily routine, right? La rutina diaria. Because those are things that we're doing to ourselves, right? We're waking ourselves up, we're stretching ourselves, we're getting ourselves up, we're showering ourselves, we're bathing ourselves, we're doing all of those things. So let's just talk a little bit. We talked about llamar being to call and llamarse being to call oneself. So let's look right here. We have the verb hablar. And so the verb hablar, just like normal in the present indicative tense, we know it would be hablo, right? I talk. Hablas. You talk. Habla. He talks. Hablamos. Hablamos, right? We talk. Habláis. And we would also have hablan down here. Okay, so we know that hablo means I talk, right? I talk to my friend. Yo hablo con mi amigo. Yo hablo a mi amigo, right? But then we have the verb hablarse. That would mean to talk. And what does that say mean? That say means to yourself, right? To oneself. So anytime we add that to a verb, it means to oneself. So this would be to talk to oneself. A little silly. But if we were to conjugate it, remember there's two parts to reflexive verbs conjugations. So we would have me hablo. I talk to myself. Te hablas. You talk to yourself. Se habla. He talks to himself. Nos hablamos. We talk to ourselves. Os habláis. Accent on that A right there. Se hablan. Right? They talk to themselves. Okay? Very important for us to remember. We could take any of these other verbs right here. Like, notice most of these are reflexive verbs because they have to do the daily routine. So let's change this right here. Mirar, to look. Okay, so just mirar means to look. So if we were to conjugate it in the yo form, it'd be miro, I look. Miras, right? You look. Mira, she looks, he looks. Miramos, we look. Miráis, accent on that A. You all look. Miran, right? They look. But if we were to change it to mirarse, just like it is in our vocab word, that would mean to look, and our say means to yourself, right? So it would be to look at oneself. So we might look at ourselves in the mirror, okay, in the window as we walk by. So we know that in reflexive verb conjugations, like mirarse is a reflexive verb, that there needs to be two parts. So we're going to keep this reflexive pronoun, the me, te, se, nos, os, se. We're going to keep on to those, and we're just going to add our verb conjugation. So me miro means I look at myself, right? I look at myself in the mirror. Me miro en el espejo. You look at yourself. Te miras. You look at yourself in the mirror. Te miras en el espejo. He looks at himself. Se mira en el espejo. He looks at himself in the mirror. Nos miramos. We look at ourselves. Nos miramos en el móvil. We look at ourselves in our phones. Right? On Snapchat. You all look at yourselves. Os miráis. Accent on that A. Right? Y'all look at yourselves. Y finally, se miran is they look at themselves. Okay, so it's they look at themselves because that to oneself is really important. There are a lot of verbs that we can make reflexive, right? So we can make mirar reflexive. We can make hablar reflexive. Sometimes they make a little more sense than other times. So we know that say, that to oneself is going to be really important, and we need to remember that there are two parts to our verb conjugation when we are doing that, okay? Let's look at one more verb, right? So we have the verb despertarse aquí. So we have the verb despertar, right? Which means to wake up. And let's put it down here too. Despertarse. Despertarse. Right? What would that be? To wake up oneself, right? You're waking yourself up. So this is also a stem changer, right? So it's going to be E to IE in the present indicative tense. So it's just like, if I want to say I wake up my brother, my verb conjugation would be despierto, right? So if I wanted to put that in a sentence, let's see if we can add some space down here. I would say, I despierto, wake up, mi hermano, right? I wake up my brother. You wake up, despiertas, right? You could say you wake up your brother. Do we need that to there? No, we do not. So we could just say despiertas to, what's it, brother, hermano, right? You wake up your brother. He wakes up, despierta. We could say you wake up, he wakes up, or she, let's do she. Ella despierta su perro, right? A su perro, dog. We have despertamos, right? We wake up the neighbors. Despertáis, accent on that A. And finally, we'd have back to our subject, despiertan, right? We wake, they wake up, okay? So that's despertar, which is to wake up. But we know despertarse is to wake oneself up. So I would say, me despierto. So if I wanted to write the sentence, me despierto a las 5 cada mañana, right? I would say I wake myself up at 5 in the morning, okay? So I wake myself up at 5 in the morning every morning, okay? You wake yourself up, te despiertas. He wakes himself up, se despierta. We wake ourselves up, nos despertamos. Y'all wake yourselves up, os despertáis. Despertáis. And then they wake themselves up, se despiertan. Okay? So we have the two differences between the reflexive down here and the not reflexive. So really putting that emphasis on a reflexive verb is something that you are doing to yourself.